Hello, welcome to the channel and thanks for watching. So a year ago today I started my YouTube journey and I thought it'd be interesting today to talk a little bit about how that last year's been, what Adam's hobby stuff is all about. I'm also going to touch on my time at Games Workshop very briefly and go through a little bit of my hobby journey, what I'm into, kind of my pile of shame, my hobby plans, and touch a little bit on some 3D printed models that I've picked up recently. So stick around if you want to see that. If you want to drop straight to the pile of shame review and talking about 3D models, I'll put the time on the screen somewhere so you can skip to that if you fancy it. So my hobby journey, I've got a mix of figures just here just to reference as we go. I started off far too many years ago playing with these boys, the RTB01 Space Marines, on the carpet in my house. Late 80s, early 90s is when I first got into this system, playing Rogue Trader, and that's really what kick-started my wargaming journey. I'd done model soldiers and airfix kits and things like you do as a kid before that, but that's really what started my love of wargaming. I did drift out of it for a number of years, went off to university, got back into it again. Ended up after university working for Games Workshop. I worked part-time for them while I was at uni. Afterwards, went on the management programme and I ran a number of stores around Yorkshire and the north of England. Then went to be an area manager and I ended up in Scotland for a couple of years being a regional manager, and then finished off in about 2007 when I left and went and joined the real world, so to speak, and get the job there. So quite a breadth of history of when I worked for Workshop, and I've spent time at head office and those kind of things. Got my hands on some nice models during the time. You'll see here, this is the Thunderhawk gunship metal model box. Been a lot of noise about these on the internet in the last couple of months, so if you guys fancy, drop a comment down below and at some point I might take you through my Thunderhawk gunship building and buying experience with the metal model there. So, you know, I've done quite a lot of things, and in the last sort of 15 years since leaving Games Workshop, I've done a lot of other game systems as well. So this is just an example, a Hummel from Bolt Action. Love the Bolt Action game systems, play both editions. I play a lot of Warlord Games systems, particularly love them. And actually had a really good couple of days when I was at Games Workshop with John Stallard, the guy who set up Warlord Games. Great bloke, love the ethos of the company. Other systems I play, just an example, you can see there, Stormtrooper. I've done a bit on the channel for this. So again, I really like Star Wars, like I'm sure a lot of us do, and that really is what kicks us off into liking sci-fi, I would well imagine. And I've drifted through Flames of War, all sorts of other game systems as well. So I'll take you through my bit on the channel now. So I started it a year ago, as I just said, and really it was partly because I had the spare time, lockdown. I typically paint for an hour or two on an evening anyway, just my thing, but that was probably escalating a bit more because I'm not going out as much. And also my current company I work for is doing more and more online social media, interacting with the staff in that sense. It's not really my forte, so I thought what better way to learn about how to do it than start a YouTube channel. So that's what started us off, and I started with the Necron Convergence of Dominion a year ago. That was my first thing that I published. So I suppose, why do I do what I do? What makes me aim at certain things? Well, let's talk about it. And really, my hobby will be driven partly by what event is going on, what I'm doing at the moment, where I'm going, but also if I happen just to fancy painting something, you know, I will sometimes do something that's nothing to do with the project I'm currently doing. So let's see how we went. I'll have a sip of tea. This is a Bugman's mug from about 2005 when I spent a couple of months working at head office. So I think I might be getting the time wrong, but somewhere around there. And so I have a cup of tea. So that's kind of why I do what I do. So you see there, a scenery set. We've unboxed the cruiser. We've built another TT Combat scenery set, something I really do love. The TT Combat scenery, real cheap and also very customizable. You'll see some more of that later. Then drifted into painting a Kelly's Heroes Bolt Action vehicle. And actually in that video I did talk about how I've had that vehicle for about 2 years before painting it. So you will see later on when I go through my pile of shame. You do get a backlog, as I'm sure every hobbyist does. Something I love doing is bases. I think doing characterful bases for your models really can bring them to life. So when I got the Blood Bowl set at the stuff very early into the start of my channel, I thought, right, I want to do some custom bases. So I did some Flagstone style bases for them. And again, really enjoyable to do that. Painted the Orcs, one of my first successful videos, as I would call it. You know, a couple of thousand views now. It is 11 months later, but my first video ever to break 1,000 views, so it seemed to go down quite well. And I had quite a few people tell me at the time, oh, stick to topical subjects, you know, do things that people are going to be searching for. But to me, I don't always do the most topical current army. I paint what I fancy. So, you know, I've drifted from Blood Bowl and got bored for a week. Did some Necron Warriors because I was going to an event and I was going to a game, so we bashed through those. then black onto the Blood Bowl. Actually, I really remember enjoying painting the Elf Referee. Stripes and things is not something I would normally do, but you know, it was a bit of fun to do that, and pushing yourself out your comfort zone can be a great thing to do. Then on to Death Guard. Now, I'd bought a Death Guard army-ish when the 40k box set came out for 8th edition, I think it was, that had the Death Guard in, and I gave them away because I didn't fancy them at the time. Then I really got into them, and it's one of my biggest current armies at the moment. So some good videos on those and some quite successful ones on how to make a Demon Prince, that kind of thing. And I suppose you count him as a monster, I suppose, if you were tallying up what we're painting, and I am doing in the background, just having a quick tally of what we've done. So some of this you will start to see again on the channel as I'm expanding my Death Guard army for a big 10,000 point game next year. I've mentioned it a couple of times, and it is going to be taking down a Warlord Titan, so I'm doing quite a bit on that at the moment. Then Blackstone Fortress. This is the only part of Blackstone Fortress that I did feature on the channel because I'd already done the set way before starting the channel. Particularly love it. I think Blackstone Fortress is a cracking game. So a breadth of videos you can see here. I won't bore you with talking through every single one, but something I like to do is little things like this about how to make tentacles and cables. Not many people watch that video about how making tentacles and cables with a comb, but I think that was a great video, and it's a little hobby technique that I've used for years and years and years that seems to be surprising to people. So, you know, just one to think about. Here's a project that's kind of stalled for a while, my Dark Angel's successor Marines. I'll just go grab one now actually. Give me a sec to get it out of my cabinet. So Dark Angels was my biggest army for many years, and I actually ended up doing nearly a full chapter. I might tell stories about that again another time. That was when I was working for Workshop and you could order hundreds of models for not a lot of price. But I wanted to do a successor chapter. So here they are. These are my Caliban's fists, as we're calling them. So Imperial fist symbols, Dark Angel symbols, sculpted fur, and I've done some resin river bases. A great idea, and I really was passionate at the time and then got distracted. I will come back to these soon because again I'm doing a little 1,000 point mini tournament I'm going to in February, and I'm considering getting these guys up to 1,000 points to go to that. So I suppose watch the channel for that one there, but quite happy with what I've done. Liked the colour scheme, and I'm sure I'll be going back to that relatively soon, hopefully. So I've done some brush reviews, I've done reviews on bits of equipment, I've painted Star Wars, I've done quite a lot really, and this is my typical hobby journey. You know, I will paint most nights, as I've said, and do some hobby most weeknights, that is, you know, in the weekends you go out or whatever, but I will do that, and I do spend a fair bit of time away for work, or used to pre-COVID, not so much nowadays, and I'll quite often take some models just to paint in the hotel room because I still get up at 5 in the morning regardless of how far I'm driving or what I'm doing. So, you know, I do a bit of painting in the mornings, a bit at night. Now, Necromunda is an interesting one. It's probably the game I've played the most in my life. Again, when it came out originally, it was just before I started working for Games Workshop as a part-timer at university, but really got obsessed with it. And as a university crowd, we all played an awful lot of Necromunda in and around going out and that kind of thing, obviously. So one of the particular favourite games, and something that will bounce up on the channel quite a lot. I haven't quite covered every gang yet. I've still got Goliaths to do. I've got a couple of Goliath models I can still paint up, and I can't remember what else I've not done, but I've definitely not covered every gang on the channel yet, but I will do at some point. So keep an eye if there's a gang you want to cover or some characters on there. So I've done a couple of book reviews and rambled through some current things, and Sisters of Battle is another one that's interesting for me because Sisters of Battle, for years and years, was an army I really got into in 2nd edition, I think it was, 2nd or 3rd edition. I had a big Sister of Battle army. Obviously that went the way of eBay and whatever years and years ago, but it was really exciting to get back into Sisters of Battle and really kind of, I got really involved in them, got up to about 4,500 points game we did, enjoyed that. Big scenery set in Necromunda. You'll see a pattern in the channel now. We'll rattle through. It goes from Necromunda to 40k to some other systems occasionally. So one thing I haven't done a great deal of on the channel or at all in the last year really is bolt action painting. I've got a couple of bolt action armies sat in cases, built and undercoated, but I need to do some work on those. So you know, I'm sure we'll get back to it. Objective markers, something I think is fantastic fun to do. Do some objective markers when you're doing an army. Great fun. And you can see the rest of the channel, how my journey goes. We're going back into Sisters of Battle, some decal work, Necromunda, and we're now down to the last couple of months and we're drifting into some Kill Team, and now we're really into what my current project is. And my current project is, again, I said, that Nurgle army, and I will bounce around and do some other videos. Now here's a video, if you fancy taking a look at something completely different, my top 5 tanks at the Tank Museum. So I went to the Tank Museum and reviewed my top 5 tanks. It's got naff all views, and people told me, what did you do that for? You know, you're ruining the channel views, but hopefully what you're kind of getting the sense of is my ethos of the channel is to do whatever is in my hobby and whatever I fancy doing at the moment. So, and here we are, really up to current kind of day, painting my Deathcore Krieg, and future projects we'll talk about again when I'm doing my very brief run through some of my pile of shame. And here we're up to there, some single figure painting, and my last video that was last Sunday about how to use green stuff wool rolls to make bases and scenery. And actually the successful videos seem to be around casting models, doing those things, and I will be doing a little bit more of that as we go through. So that was my year, that's what I've done the videos. I'll try to put some sort of counter up on the screen for how many models I think I have done, but it's a good couple of hundred, and especially when you put scenery sets and things in there, and that's a fairly typical year. So let's talk through my pile of shame. On with the pile of shame, or as people keep telling me I should call it, the pile of opportunity. Now this is not going to be the entirety of the models that I don't have painted, because that would take far too long. I store typically my current projects or things I want to do in the next couple of months in the house. The rest of it sits in the garage or in the loft, and as you can imagine it's quite an extensive backlog I need to do. I went through a phase of just before we moved house recently, well 6 months ago we moved house, I tried to build every model I had, and actually a lot of my armies are now built and in cases ready for painting, so not too bad. So some of it's built up very recently. We'll sort of talk about that. So this is the thing I'm currently working on, the second of my mutated Nurgle Knights. So really enjoying this, and again, as I said, building up for a very, very big game next summer. So this will be going on the channel on Sunday, doing a how I built it and painted video for that. And then after that, I'm going to do some bases for some bigger models. You might have seen on the channel already, I did a unboxing video on the Knight Asterius, Mechanicum Knight one, so that will feature on the channel. I have got that just off screen, I don't know if I'm going to wave it on, but I'm doing that, and these pieces here are going to be for the base of those models. So these are my first really 3D printed models that I've ever bought. Now I bought these off an eBay seller, and if I'm honest, this epitomises my issue with 3D printing. I'm sure lots of people are now going to tell me, oh, you just bought a bad one, or the guy doesn't know what he's doing. But the Dreadnought, actually, relatively pleased with. So this is obviously some template they've bought that apparently is okay to print or whatever. We're not making too many rules, or Workshop would have shut them down. And you know what? The quality on these is okay. Slightly different scale, but there's not too many lines. There's not too many issues. Now, the Rhino, however, which was going to be on one of the bases, this was I'm thinking about for the Knight base, has a little bit more lines. You can see them there. A little bit more cleaning up work, and in certain areas, it's not great. Now, I'm using it for scenery, so this ain't a problem. And actually, these were fairly cheap. This was about 14 quid. So for value, you can't really sort of fault that, I guess. However, the casting on the Land Raider, that's appalling. Now, these were done, I imagine, with 2 different printers, 2 different styles. So if you've got any comments on whether that's typical, whether I should expect anything different. But I think it's a really interesting concept, 3D printing. Is it something I will do? Maybe one day. Not 100% certain. We'll see. But these are the first 3D printed models I've bought. And I will use them on the channel, and I'm going to use them in the scenery pieces for the Knight and the Titan. So speaking about Titans, in a couple of boxes over here, I've got a Warhound, get that right, Warhound Titan, that I bought off a seller online. Spoken about this before, did an event at Warhammer World with the intention of going down and spending my money on a Warhound Titan, and it had been out of stock for weeks before. I phoned them and asked them, is it going to be in stock on the weekend? They said probably not, we don't know. So I searched around online and found one. Now, there was nothing to tell me this was fake or recast or anything like that. I have my suspicions that it might be. You can see they're different colours. I won't go into full detail because I am going to do a full unboxing and talk about my thoughts on recasting and whether I agree with it. Broadly, I don't, but we'll talk about why it has a place. But this is going to be a future project. Looking forward to doing it. I have had a Warhound Titan before, which I did, buy from Games Workshop, but it was quite a few years ago when I worked there. So that's coming up on the channel. So more pile of shame. Let's clear the decks and let's talk about future projects. Obviously, we've just said that the Nurgle stuff is a big project. So again, currently working on what is going to be a very mutated Knight from the Glotkin model. Again, that will be coming up. And really, I need to expand the army as well. So you always need more basic troops. The Plague Marine box is brilliant. And we've got a Felthius and a Tainted cohort that I'm going to be converting up to add on to my Blightlord Terminators, which have sort of featured on the channel in the background before. So some normal troopers to build. An interesting project which you may want to see involves this guy. So I bought this over a year ago, and this is an MH Mark IV Tadpole tank, a World War I tank, and I'm going to kit bash this along with some Nurgle bits that you've already seen, and particularly a Masmic Malignifier to make what I think is one of the coolest looking Space Marine vehicles. So maybe a bit of a challenge. I've got some other bits I'm going to add on. You're going to do some casting, some blue stuff work, some sculpting, so keep an eye on the channel for that one, and it's a challenge I'm particularly looking forward to. We've mentioned bolt action. I do have a Jagdtiger and a Kelly's Hero set, so I pre-ordered the Jagdtiger way before it came out. I'm going to get it built at some point. And Kelly's Heroes, favourite film, favourite set of models, and I've got a built, undercoated American Army for bolt action that these are going to go with, that at some point I'm going to do, and I might do that as like a 24-hour can I paint 2,000 points kind of challenge. So again, that's in the pile of shame. We have a little bit of Star Wars in the pile of shame, that when we get round to realistically May, because this is a side project, when we get to May, probably a few months away, I'll probably paint this up and do a bit of Star Wars month when it comes around. Now here's probably the longest running project that's been sat in the cupboard. Last year I bought this guy. So Terminator Chaplain Tarentus, when he came out, I thought, ooh, finally I am going to paint my Space Hulk models. They're in the garage, I'm not going to show you those, but I bought him and I thought, right, this is an excuse. I pointed up the army, so I also bought Blood Angel Terminator Assault Squad to take it up to the right amount of troops and things that we need, and I bought a Storm Raven, and this will be, along with a Forge World Blood Angel Dreadnought, this will be my Blood Angel army, finally, from doing the, whatever year it came out, 2019, or it was earlier than that, Space Hulk. So that's kind of the big upcoming projects. I do have a little project with the new Red Gobbo that came out, the commemorative series, and a bit of I ordered some 3D sculpted Father Christmases. Thought this was a bit of fun, with his toilet rolls in his bag, and we're going to make some Christmas decorations, so watch the channel for that one. So that was a little bit of a run through my pile of shame, a little bit of talking on tiny bits about 3D printing. I will do a bigger video when I build the models, and we'll talk a little bit more about my thoughts on 3D printing, my thoughts on the hobby in general. I hope my ramble there made some sense. I just wanted to do something radically different for the first year anniversary of the channel. A few little bits in there if you want to see more about any of what we've talked about, whether that be the Knights, the Titan, the 3D printed stuff, my Forge World experiences, unboxing a Thunderhawk, that kind of stuff. Just drop some comments down below. And look, thank you all for sticking with me for a year. And hopefully we'll stick around for another year and we'll see how the channel can grow. So thank you all very much. And I'll say cheers with a cup of tea. Cheers everybody. And hopefully I'll see you on the channel again soon.